Your daily news update on 106.6.
And first, your morning local news report on Pro 106.6. 13 persons were killed and 34 others were injured in the renewal of the armed conflict over land between the Masalit and the Fallata tribes in the Greda locality in South Darfur state. The Wali of the South Darfur state, Musa Mahdi, who was accompanied by the State Security Committee, got acquainted with incidents in Giredi, a town 85 kilometers south of Niala, capital of the South Darfur state. The State Security Council held an emergency meeting with the military commanders and local leaders and the area and decided taking security and legal procedures for protecting civilians and pursuing the culprits. The institutions of the National Umma Party, the NUP, have approved the decision of the institution of the presidency of naming Major General Fadlallah Burma Nasir as acting chairman of the NUP. This was announced by chairman of NUP's political bureau, Dr. Muhammad al-Mahdi Hassan, at a press conference held at the party's headquarters in Durman. The chairman of the opposition Bija Congress and head of the negotiation delegation of Eastern Chak, Osama Saeed, left for Juba on Monday afternoon. He stated that his visit aims to further consultation with the mediation over the implementation of the East Sudan Track Agreement. Mr. Osama met Sunday with the Vice President of the Sovereignty Council, Lieutenant General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, who is the head of the governmental delegation for peace negotiations, where Dagalo affirmed government keenness to implement peace agreement of East Sudan Track. And finally, the Vice President of the Transitional Sovereignty Council, Lieutenant General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, chaired on Monday in the Republican Palace the meeting of the Higher Committee of Collection of Firearms and the Unlicensed Vehicles in the presence of ministers, walis of the states, and security leaders. The committee's technical coordinator and spokesman, Major General Abdulhadi Abdullah, said in press statements that the committee took a number of decisions, including the continuation of firearms collection campaign and deployment of troops in the states to control the smuggling of vehicles. That was your local news, and coming up next, your international news on Pro 106.6.
106.6 Pro FM.
And Reuters news agency has condemned the arrest of its cameraman, Komera Gemechu, in Ethiopia, saying no reason has been given for his detention. His family said police handcuffed and took him away from their home in the capital, Addis Ababa, on Thursday and seized his phone and computer. Police have not yet commented. Mr. Komera, at age 38, covered the conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, but it was not clear whether his arrest was connected to his work, Reuters stated. His family said flash drives and papers were also seized during his arrest by about 10 armed officers, the agency reported. President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced new, tougher coronavirus restrictions a day after South Africa recorded more than 1 million COVID-19 cases. Indoor and outdoor gatherings will be banned, curfew introduced from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., and alcohol sales prohibited. Mr. Ramaphosa said the country was at an extremely dangerous point in the pandemic and action had to be taken. Recently, authorities confirmed a new, faster-spreading variant of the virus had been detected in South Africa. Some hospitals and medical centers have reported a huge rise in admissions, putting a heavy strain on resources. Spain is to set up a registry of people who refuse to be vaccinated against the coronavirus and share it with other European Union nations. the health minister has said, stating, Salvador Illa said the list would not be made accessible to the public or to employers. He said the way to defeat the virus was to vaccinate all of us. The more, the better. Spain has been one of the countries in Europe worst affected by the virus. It is currently rolling out the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which was approved by EU member states last week. And finally, England's very high COVID infection level is a growing concern as the NHS struggles to cope with rising patient numbers, a health official said. On Monday, a record 41,385 COVID cases and 357 deaths were reported in the UK. NHS England said the number of people being treated for the virus in hospital is now 20,426. which is higher than the previous peak point of about 19,000 in April. Health officials in Wales and Scotland have also said they are at risk of becoming overwhelmed. Monday's figures for new cases is the highest daily number reported by the UK government, and the first time the daily total has surpassed 40,000. It is thought the infection rate was much higher during the first peak in April, but testing capacity was too limited to detect the true number. Some data over the Christmas period is incomplete as a result of certain services being paused. That was your international news on Pro 106.6 FM. Stay safe.
Your daily news update on 106.